John Stage, thanks for coming in.
My pleasure.
We're recording at the Palace today with people who I feel have made an impact in the Syracuse restaurant community. So we've had the Fiacchi family in earlier today, now at mano, and Eric Devendorf was in just a little while ago, raised $70,000 for restaurants earlier this year. And it's really exciting to think about the impact Dinosaur Barbecue has had on the restaurant scene here in Syracuse. I mean, it's not just kind of like hometown pride for this established, successful business that's gone out into the world and made a name for itself and for the city. But even outside of the restaurant community, those two out there can tell you the times I've DM'd them with screenshots from Parks and Rec about the Dinosaur Barbecue sauce bottle that's in that one episode, and
That's good.
It's really cool to think that, that there's a business here that's made that big of an impact out there. So you've been in business, you started in 1983, is that right?
83 was when I started the concession business. 1988 is when we opened up the first Dinosaur at that location.
Okay.
So yeah, 83 we went from, it's called Dinosaur Productions, then it became Dinosaur Concessions, then it became Dinosaur Barbecue.
Yeah.
So.
Are you originally from Syracuse?
No, I'm originally from the Metro New York area.
Okay.
Yeah.
What made you land here in Syracuse?
My father got a job up here, so we moved up when I was 13 years old.
So you started out as kind of like traveling, right?
Yeah, we started off doing motorcycle shows, fairs, festivals. It was sausage, peppers, and onions, and steak sandwiches. So in order to differentiate myself from my competition in the sausage business, everyone did like a marinara sauce. I was like, man, we got to be different. Let me make a barbecue sauce. Because I had no reference point of barbecue at this point.
Yeah.
Then we started getting on the fair circuit. So I was like almost like a carny for like 5 years.
Okay.
I would travel up and down the East Coast doing fairs, festivals, motorcycle shows. And then once I started crossing the Mason-Dixon line, they started asking me why barbecue was in my name if I'm doing Italian sausage. And I really didn't have an answer for them, but I went out and it started me thinking like, what the hell is barbecue? My reference point of barbecue was what I was doing, putting sausage on a grill. So that was around 1985, 1986. And then it became a search for that craft at that point. And by the time we opened up in 88 in Syracuse, so I got kind of burnt out from all the road traveling,
Yeah.
it was a fun life for a little bit, but 5 years of it got to be a grind. So 88, we opened up as Dinosaur Barbecue, and I imagine the barbecue was a little middling at that point. You look back and I was like, man, did we actually do that? So it's been an evolution. It's been a constant evolution.
What's your training like? I mean, I don't know what the barbecue scene was back then. Today it's really romanticized, right? There's like this love for and this passion for craft barbecue and all over the country. I used to live in Central Texas, and
yeah, that's brisket country.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And forget about getting anything without slices of white bread and pickles and white onions.
Yeah, if you look at when we started, there was no internet. There were no cookbooks on barbecue. Barbecue was an incredibly regional thing, and my first foray was into Memphis.
Okay.
Like for me, it was all about Memphis and pork. Until I went to Central Texas.
Yeah.
I was like, damn, man, this is what brisket is.
Memphis was kind of the hot scene for barbecue at the time, right?
Well, it's still got.
I mean, it still is.
Yeah, but it's pork.
Yeah.
There's no brisket, so we didn't even do. God, I used to do London broils back in the day when I first started. Yeah, but it was like, it was Memphis. I used to fly into Memphis. That's how I started brewing my barbecue sauce. I used to brew it in Blytheville, Arkansas. I'd fly into Memphis and then rent a car, and then I would make the sauce itself at this little hillbilly plant up in Blytheville. But Memphis to me was everything. But going back to my point was, you had to figure that out. It was all trial and error. There was no YouTube videos on how to barbecue. There was no other information.
Yeah.
And there was nobody in the Northeast that was doing it at the time. So it became a lot of, so my learning was very much trial and error.
Yeah.
And, I still look at it as a craft. Barbecue is a craft, but it's a craft I still think I'm still learning it to this day. There's always something, and it's you take a rough, tough piece of meat and turn it into something
Oh, yeah.
juicy and tender. Like, you would never cook a steak to 205 degrees,
Right.
but you'll cook your brisket to that. So it goes against everything you think you know as a cook. So yeah, I don't know, man, I've been doing it for so long. I'm going on, 30 plus years doing
Wow.
it. So, yeah.
I got into, as most people did during the pandemic, I got really into cooking. And there's two things I was trying to really get into. One of them was pizza and making really great pizza at home, which I never really successfully did. I went with the pizza steel route. I tried the stone for a little bit, but it just didn't work. So I went with the pizza steel. And then out of my passion, had the inventor of the pizza steel, Andrus Langston, on our podcast during the pandemic, which was pretty cool. And
Nice.
got some tips from him on how to go home and make pizza. The other thing I was I bought a Weber kettle, and I was like, all right, I'm going to smoke that way. My wife, because she knows me too well, refused to let me buy a stick smoker. And so I wound up going with the Weber kettle and just, snake method, wood chips, doing it that way. I did a brisket at maybe the height of beef prices during the pandemic. I drove an hour and a half away to Earlville and bought it from a farmer and bought this like 19-pound brisket for like $250. I mean, it was just ridiculous. Came home, invited like 10 of our friends to a backyard hangout and said, hey, I'm smoking a brisket. First time I've ever done it before in my life, hoping that it would
about
work.
14 hours.
And luckily it turned out pretty good. It
Did it?
turned
Good.
out okay, yeah.
Good.
Our dog ate about a third of it off the counter, but
All right, that's a good sign.
other than that, it was pretty good. The one thing I'll say that I've always had trouble with and I have yet to perfect is pulled pork for some reason. I either pull it way too late or just too early.
Okay. Well, boy, see, brisket is more difficult
I
to
know.
cook than pulled pork. So just look at your bone. When that bone, if it gives it out too quick,
Yeah.
you kind of overcooked it.
Yeah.
If it's got just a slight pull and
yeah.
it comes out, you're pretty good.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It's but it really is just there's something about smoking barbecue. Barbecue, being able to go out there, spend all that time with your smoker, relax, keep an eye on it, really dial this thing in that takes hours upon hours and then comes out and is just absolutely delicious.
It starts with your fire, man. You look at barbecue, it's fire. It's you could do as little as salt and pepper, meat and smoke.
Yeah.
So your fire is your driver.
Yeah.
But getting that fire right and getting that smoke nice and clean is your first step.
Yeah.
Buying the right piece of meat. We use prime brisket. So why do I use prime? I like the marbling in it. You pay more for it, but
sure.
So you got to make sure that piece of meat is right, and then your seasoning. Like I said, you can do a great job with salt and pepper, but then it's the smoke from the fire. But you don't want too smoky. So it's really, if you obsess on the right fire, there's your driver right there. It's got to be clean smoke.
Now I've heard this. I don't know if it's true. Is it true that you will get updates from different locations on what the barbecue looks like throughout the day?
Oh yeah, twice a day.
Wow.
See, what you're eating for lunch, we put in the night before. What you're eating for dinner, we put in the morning. So going back to what I said before, the craft of barbecue is taking something, a rough, tough piece of meat, and turning it into something, delicious. So I can see from that picture what that meat looks like. I could tell you if it was cooked properly. I could tell you if it's, if it's tight or the fire was bad or, something. And then we have a phone call. What happened to that piece of meat? That looks beautiful. It's going to be a good night. So there's a saying at the Dinosaur, if the brisket's perfect, it's a good day. Everything's going to go well. If the brisket ain't right, it ain't a good day.
So what was it like way back when, opening up Dinosaur Barbecue in Syracuse, New York?
Man, what was it like? Well, first couple of years, we probably, thank God I was in the restaurant business or I would have starved. So it wasn't really until about 1991 that we started. We were just, we were breakfast, lunch, dinner.
Really?
Yeah, we actually had a pretty good breakfast. But it was like, $2 for 2 eggs.
Right.
But anyways, I hated doing breakfast. I hated getting up at that time in the morning. So it wasn't until the latter part we started getting an audience. and then we got our liquor license. Once we got our liquor license, it was able to expand, because we were just in that front room. Then we took over the bar, because that was the N&H was a famous bar back in the day that was there for 50 years. So once we did that, we're like, well, we're gonna go in the bar business now. Barbecue always wants to have, and back then, you know, just a long neck. We didn't have any draft beer, but you needed a beer with your barbecue. Once we did that, that's when, and you know, 2 years of refining your craft a little better. Yeah, then things started popping around 91, 92.
It's I took it as a sign from the Almighty. The day that I bought the brisket, I then found Shinerbach in the grocery store,
Oh, did you?
and I
There you
hadn't
go.
seen it since I'd been in Texas. So I made sure and scooped up a 6-pack and
There you go.
and had one. I always cheers the smoke whenever I first put it on, and that morning with the Shinerbach. Maybe that's why the brisket turned out so good.
Yep.
Yeah. So at what point, you know, when you're starting the restaurant, you know, you're in Syracuse, you know, you get the liquor license. At what point do you get the desire for, or the passion, or the vision for building this restaurant beyond what it was?
You know, let's see. So, in everything went a certain way. So, '88 we opened up, and then 10 years later I opened up Rochester. So it took 10 years for that next location.
Did you have a lot of people asking you to open up a second between then?
Yeah, we did. And finally, you know, I went from that plant in Blytheville and started doing my barbecue sauce in Rochester. And I fell in love with this piece of architecture. It was a 1905 train station in downtown Rochester. So I started looking around Rochester, and I kept coming back to this place. And so it was almost like the lure of that beautiful building.
Yeah.
So we went in there, and that, you know, luckily that hit. And then, I guess being a younger man at that time, I was much more ambitious. So it was like, yeah, let's keep growing this thing. I had a, you know, ton of energy, and you know, I was only, what was I, 28, 29
Okay.
at that point. So, and then we went to New York in 2004. So, you know, it went outside the realm of how you are supposed to grow. I just plopped myself into, you know, the biggest market in the most competitive market in the United States. But that we did, you know, we're 18 years in Harlem now.
Wow.
So.
What was what's the vision like when you're opening up, you're going from Syracuse to Rochester and then into New York? Are you thinking back then, you know, listen, one day I want to have all these locations and this, you know, great, you know, dry rub product and great sauce product? And
No, I wish I could tell you that there was a master plan. Everything kind of just unfolded as I was very opportunistic, I should say. If there was an opportunity that I really liked, I would do it, or I'd pursue it. But I did not have a master plan for this. It all just evolved as I went. So no, there was no master plan. But like I said, I was, you know, I was always looking for what else, what's next, what else can we do? And you know, these opportunities unfolded.
I talked to a lot of restaurant owners today who are successful with one, and I think it's really hard, I'm sure for any business owner, but especially in the restaurant industry, because there can be a lot of outside influence who aren't familiar with the industry, aren't familiar with, you know, the cost associated, you know, all that kind of stuff, and they're just kind of looking at the opportunity, and they're always encouraging, open up a second. You're doing great there. You do great with this spot. You should do it. And I talk to a lot who it's really difficult to turn that down. It's really challenging to say, no, I need to be a little bit more deliberate about this and build this footing before we go anywhere else.
Right.
I can't imagine back then, you know, I'm sure first or maybe only barbecue place back in the day here in Syracuse. I'm sure you had a lot of people saying, we've got a great second location for you.
Yeah, you do. You just gotta, you gotta be deliberate about it. And I wasn't really, when I did my second, I did not put in any type of infrastructure to be able to accommodate a second. So what that meant was me racing up and down the thruway constantly. So if you are going to expand, you should really get a plan together of what to do and how to do it, and put all the processes and procedures in place. This is lessons I've learned, by the way.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Otherwise, you're just going to, you're going to kill yourself like I did for years.
Yeah.
I tried to do everything myself. It wasn't until I started, building the right team and, getting the right players in place was even any type of expansion. Not that it wasn't doable, just it was a heavy burden to try to do things the way I did it. I would never do that. What I would tell my younger self is, everything I just said, make sure that you got all those, because once you start expanding, man, it can be very difficult.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Very
you unlock
difficult.
that door, it kind of takes off.
Yeah.
It's so different when you're not there to see the things that need to get done.
Well, that's the biggest thing is you have to look at the world through the lens of you not being there. So you open up your first restaurant and you're there morning, noon, and night. Everyone knows you. Now you have to get everybody used to you not being there, and then that becomes a problem in itself. Or get somebody in there that is going to do as good or better of a job. That would be the most ideal thing. But you really got to watch it because now you're all over the place versus being in that one. And when you're in a restaurant, you can see it, feel it, breathe it. Every little thing that's going on in that. When you start expanding, you have to put in the processes and procedures for that shit to keep going without you.
So you're doing all the smoking in the early days.
Oh, yeah.
At what point was it that you said, or that you went out and found somebody to help with that or take that over?
It was when I decided to open up in Harlem, is when I said I need to.
So you were still doing it all for Rochester?
Well, not all the smoking. That's impossible. No, but I got a person in place in Syracuse, or a team in place to do the barbecue, and then a team in place to do Rochester. So me back in the pits was really, I turned, being on the day-to-day back there. I'm still, that's my first stop during the day. And, but you got to get the right people in there because and especially the way we did it back then, it was very, very laborious.
Was it challenging to turn that over?
Yeah, that was.
We've hired, this is the one, besides all of these people sitting here that are helping me out massively today, this is the first time that I've ever turned something over. We do, our podcast and videos for our clients and that kind of stuff, but with the exception of Kristen or Dave, who helped me out from time to time on podcasts, it's a one-man show. And even today, it's challenging to take my mind out of, I don't need to know what's happening on every single camera. They have it,
There you go.
So, and
you got good people then.
Yeah, and this is something that a lot of people know how to do. I could not imagine doing that as a restaurant owner of a legit barbecue joint then in a market where there probably aren't many pit masters that exist at the time.
No, you have to turn people into pit masters. But there's very few people that come to you that have a lot of experience. Actually, more now than ever before. But back then, there was absolutely nobody.
Yeah, I'd imagine there's probably a lot more today because it has been such a popular,
Well, people want to learn the craft also.
Yeah.
And they take, once you start putting out good barbecue, people take pride in it. So, like I said, in that picture, if I see something that isn't right, I'm like, how could that happen? We have pride. How did that happen? So, and it doesn't get, so, every day at every Dinosaur, 12 o'clock and 4 o'clock, we have a tasting. So we just lay everything out and everyone looks at it, inspects it, tastes it. Is it consistent? And that's a great learning tool for new people to get their taste calibrated and to look at that brisket. I was like, I don't have to taste that. I know what that tastes like. I know what that looks like. Here's why. And when we get everybody on that same, that same path.
That's wild.
And same thing at a pizza. It's, you talk about two different crafts, low and slow barbecue, hot and fast pizza.
Right.
So learning the craft of a pizza, that was a whole nother thing with dough. And I thought pizza was going to be easy. That ain't easy. Consistent pizza is not easy.
No, it's not. And I've never, I'm obviously an expert because like I said, I was cooking during the pandemic in my house. So I'm an expert on pizza and barbecue if you didn't get that from my Weber kettle story. But I couldn't tell you, I'm sure it's different, if you're looking, you're not cooking when it comes to barbecue. So it's tough to kind of not take a peek and see what it's doing? You're basing everything off of that temperature, just trying to control the airflow.
Yeah, if you're, it depends on if you have a single piece of meat or you have meat that's on top of each other, determines how often you need to take a look at that.
Could not even imagine doing it.
So, the other secret ingredient in barbecue is patience. Mm-hmm. And you have to, know when to leave it alone.
Yeah.
And there's a certain part in barbecue that really frustrates a lot of new people is there's a stall moment in barbecue. It comes up real quick, and then it lives a long time in this one period. Mm-hmm. And during that one period is when all the collagen and all the fats and everything's melting, but it takes a long time to melt that. So, and this is where a lot of home cooks are like, God damn, I've been at this 8 hours, but it hasn't, we call it giving up the ghost, when that barbecue is tight and then it becomes loose. And it's that one bit, and you talk about temperature, it's feel. If you can pick that brisket up, and it's almost like a cradled baby, it's kind of loose, but it ain't falling apart, it's not falling apart. And then temperature. So, but the feel, sometimes the temperature's right, but the feel ain't there. So you have to, and this is where sometimes the new pitmaster, or even any pitmaster, like, it's at a right temperature, but why isn't this done? I'm like, patience, my man, patience.
The passion that you obviously have, and obviously the experience after all of these years of doing it, but the passion that you have is I'd imagine one of the most important things in having now this multi-location successful restaurant business.
That's the other secret ingredient.
Passion.
Yeah.
Was there ever a point over all these years where you were just done, didn't want to do it anymore, ready to be out? Wanted a break?
There was a little break. It was with my other partners that I had. We had a little disagreement of how fast dinosaurs should grow. And my commitment was, I'm good for one a year. I can do one a year, and that's it. I can't do any more. They had other ideas. And at this point, about 2 years ago, I bought the company back. So I went on a little hiatus for about a year and a half, almost 2 years. And that's when I opened up a pizza with Paulie.
Yeah.
And, so it wasn't so much I still loved the brand, but it became a thing with my partners. So that's why I bought it back in 2018.
It's pretty amazing and inspirational, because there's so many restaurant owners who either start with or go into partnership with other people, and that's the thing that completely shuts the whole business down.
Well, it's good until it isn't. And if you have a shared vision, and we had a shared vision for about 5 years, and then I don't know if anyone who ever gets involved with private equity, there's about a 5-year point where they want to get paid back.
Yeah.
So that's right around 5 years, like, well, we need to really ramp this up. I was like, man, that ain't gonna be me. I have no passion for that, or no want to do that. We had a lot of, very tense conversations, and I was like, you know what, if you're gonna do that, you need to find somebody who's done this, before, because it ain't gonna be me. So I stepped back.
Yeah.
And then, and then the relationship wasn't that great. So that's when I stepped back. And
what's that feeling like, kind of being, in the back seat during that time of things happening?
You know what? It wasn't my favorite time because, you see things and you're like, fuck, when you are not the majority owner anymore, you lose control.
Yeah.
And at that point, I didn't have the control to, do what I needed to be done. So I had to, it becomes a big psychological thing. You just like, all right, man, I just do, I'm going to do something else. And that's where pizza came from.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, it's, there's some great corners and blocks of food in Syracuse. And one of my favorites is the Doloro's Bakery. You have Doloro's, you have Mi Casita across the street. You have the Hall Place across the street there. I mean, just this really diverse, awesome.
Right.
If I ever want to get back to my Italian roots, I go to Deloro's and get one of their cheese calzones, you know,
Yeah,
for a
yeah,
couple
it's
bucks. Or I go to Vince's, you know, and do then Columbus Bakery. But then your block as well. I mean, Pisa, Dinosaur Barbecue, and then just around the corner you have Glazed and Confused, which is this, maybe not pushing the culinary boundaries, but they have this massively successful business.
It's good stuff.
And do such a great job with everything that they do there. It's really interesting to kind of see those. I mean, obviously you're part in two of them, so you have something to do. It's not by accident.
I'm very biased. It's my favorite corner anywhere.
Yeah, for sure.
No, I do. I love having those two right across the street from each other.
Yeah. So, you know, after all these years and all these locations, has there been one that has been just kind of your favorite, or one that, you know, you go to and it just kind of feels like this is the one?
Well, Syracuse is always going to be that, because that's the original. So I got 30 plus years of history in that building. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah. With that's kind of an easy one.
What's the future of Dinosaur Barbecue?
Well, the future is right now is getting on the other side of this pandemic.
Yeah.
Someday my team that is running this, on the day to day, I hope that they're going to own this someday, and keep it based in Syracuse and keep it a hometown team. But right now, it's getting on the other side of,
Yeah.
getting on the other side of this. So as far as expansion, or like I said, man, I'm pretty. I got 6 restaurants, and with Paulie at Pisa's, that's 7. So, my hands are full right now.
Yeah.
So, I'm interested in doing things like I did with Paulie.
Yeah. That's cool.
But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But right at this second, it's getting through this new wave of the pandemic, the new curveballs.
It's going to be interesting. We work with 165 restaurants across the state, and seeing Erie County, who put their mandate in a couple weeks ago, and seeing what some of those restaurants were doing, and then now today in Syracuse, and hearing the panic in a lot of their voices of what to do and how to do it and all that kind of stuff is, I won't say it's scary, but it's interesting. It's interesting to see how different people who are business owners react to it. And it's also really interesting to see what the public's perception of it is and how that adjusts to their, going out to eat or supporting these local spots. Yeah. I was really, really interested in the beginning of the pandemic, me being the expert that I am. I say that sarcastically. I said that we were either going to go back to Mayberry, it was going to push everything in our industry up, advance it a decade. And I think that's what's happening. More and more in Syracuse. 2 years ago, if I tried to show half the people in Syracuse a QR code, they'd look at me like, what the hell is this? And,
oh, no doubt.
And now today, most of them are using it to look at their menu and even order.
Which I am going to be, I can't stand it anymore. Like, to me, a menu is a romantic entree into the dining experience.
Yeah.
I get nothing off that, looking at my phone, trying, scrolling down. I want the menu back. I really do. I love the romanticism of a restaurant menu.
Yeah.
I hate the QR code, but we have it, for people that want it, but
Right.
we have the menu. Technology, yes, in the last couple of years, and especially with Dinosaur, we've, have we upped our technology game in the last 2 years. But you had to. There was,
Right.
These moments create,
Yeah, exactly.
opportunity, I guess. And it's a different world.
Yeah, the accessibility for a lot of these local restaurants to step up their tech game in advance and reach customers. I always try to tell them, their most important part is creating as little friction as possible
Right.
for the customer to get your product. And this is helping a lot of them out with that.
No doubt.
And dropping the cost of it like crazy for them, so they have the access to it.
Yeah, it's like anything else, when new technology comes out, it's expensive, and now it's become, the POS systems, the ordering online systems, they become fairly reasonable to implement.
Well, John, thank you so much for coming down. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, nice meeting you.
I'm excited. I can't wait to tell my father, my dad, his favorite area of barbecue is Memphis. And my dad, it was in restaurant industry and hospitality industry and all his life. And he has his own barbecue sauce that just straight out of Memphis streets, and so that's exciting. I'll be excited to tell him that
Yeah, that's where
you kind of cut your teeth in
that
Memphis.
was the inspiration, no doubt.